talk about a few things we can do to get a combine ready to go ahead and pull into the field, whether we're doing a demonstration or getting a customer started with the machine. We're going to talk about some things that are kind of a high-level view of what we can do to really get started, get a quick start, and get going in the field. So we're going to talk about AG3000. We're going to talk about task data, getting that set up and going. We're going to talk about the combine itself, getting the C2100, and if it's a Gleaner, the overhead display or EIP ready to go. And we're going to actually drive this machine around a little bit and operate the guidance. We're going to log some data. We're going to export a task, and we'll be ready to take a look at that task then on FarmWorks as well. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with the AG3000 first. So the first thing you might want to do is make sure that all the connections are good with your AG3000. So with the top dock that's mounted to the roof, we want to go ahead and make sure that's secured and make sure that our harness is connected. We also want to make sure, on a combine especially, that we have a remote antenna plugged in there. So the remote antenna bolts directly to the extension on the grain bin, and it plugs in directly into the back of the top dock. So let's make sure our harnesses are routed correctly and everything is plugged in. The last step to this is actually turning the system on. So underneath the armrest on a Gleaner machine and up on the right-hand console in a Massey Ferguson or a Challenger, you're going to be able to see the switch that says auto. So it's got 3 positions to the switch, and we want to make sure that the switch is fully on. If it's off and we turn it on, what we're going to notice is an object pool loading on our C2100. So we will often need to calibrate the machine the first time that it's come in. So calibrate that AG3000 system. To do that, we first need to be in the advanced mode. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate here to the advanced mode. It's under basic or advanced, and I select a green check mark. Yes, I would like to make sure that I'm in the advanced mode. And next I'm going to go ahead and press the wrench icon and scroll down with the bottom right hand button here, a couple of screens, and then I get to the calibration screen. Notice that I've got a compass calibration and a wheel angle sensor, or WAS calibration. Okay? We're going to go ahead and calibrate these. It's time for calibration of the steering system. In the advanced mode, let's first calibrate the wheel angle sensor. Note that we turn the wheel to the left stop, press the button, turn the wheel to the right stop, press another button, and save the calibrations for the sensor. Let's go ahead and do this one real quick. Turning the wheel to the full left lock. Notice to do this you may have to move the combine forward ahead just a little bit enough to get those steering tires turned. We don't have a header on the front, it means the back end is quite a bit heavier. Now turn the wheel to the full lock on the right. Bring it all the way. Press the green check mark. Now we need to center our wheels. This version of software, this is something that's specific to make sure that we have everything correct. Now I like to look in my rear view mirrors, make sure they look straight, and then go ahead and drive ahead a few feet to make sure that we're going straight ahead. At that point I can go ahead and press that green check mark. Calibration is complete. Press to exit. Now that we've completed that, you can probably hear the beeping here that says the steering controller needs to be reset. Please power down the steering controller or the vehicle. Simply press the switch to the mid position. Wait a few seconds and turn it back on. That completes the wheel angle sensor calibration. Okay. The next one we're going to do is the compass calibration. So remember, there's only 2 calibration procedures necessary for the AG3000 in the combine. So again, in the advanced mode, let's go to that compass calibration. We're going to go ahead and continue with step 1. Compass calibration must be completed on level ground, away from buildings and other large objects. Let's press the green check mark again. Drive in a circle in any direction. After completing 1.5 continuous circles, press the tick. So we're out here on a good sized concrete pad here, since we got some rain yesterday. I think we can go ahead and take 1.5 revolutions. Okay, so turning the wheel all the way to the left is complete, press the green check mark. Alright, so now we've got both calibrations completed. After we've completed the calibrations, we want to make sure that our settings are correct in terms of our dimensions. Alright, now we can see the screen here that we've got our dimensions set up as here. So we've given you a good idea here. This is a good example of something to check against your machine. Make sure that it has those dimensions set. The best way to do this is to actually measure it, but we've got some good averages here based on tire size averages and the average combine height, things like that. Some of these will not change, so the distance that the axles are apart and some things like that. Okay. So the next step here that we're going to want to take a look at is our nudge feature. This is something that's very commonly used, especially when we use WAS satellite for correction. Okay, this is something where we start from the beginning of the day, and by the end we may need to go ahead and have a nudge that's easy to use. Also, if there are multiple combines in the same field, it's possible that one of the machines may get off just a little bit, and it's nice to have a simple way to go ahead and move that line over. Okay. So to get to this, I want to make sure that I can explain this part to you. We call this GPS drift compensation. So in the advanced menu, it's in the second screen over, and you see a manual nudge offset. We're going to go ahead and leave this one at 0 because this is going to allow us to automatically set it. The bottom part of the screen is what we're concerned with here, GPS drift compensation. I like to set this at about 6 inches. This means every time we push the nudge button, that we'll get to in a second, that it's going to move the combine to the left or to the right 6 inches depending on which button we press. Okay. There's some people that like 4 inches, some people like to have a 12-inch or a 1-foot nudge. 6 inches really works well. So if I press it 2 or 3 times, then that means it's moving it over 12 or 18 inches even. Okay. So I've got that set at 6. That should be good there. I really like to use the basic mode. Keep everything kind of simple there for the guidance. So once I've got everything set up, I'm going to go ahead and press on that wrench again and go over to our basic/advanced, and I'm going to confirm that I want to change my mode back to basic. So now note in basic mode we really only have a few features here that we can press on to get started. Notice that our arrows are available here for nudging left or nudging right. If we had 0 in that offset that we talked about a little bit earlier, that drift compensation, we would not see these arrows. They would disappear. So if you ever have that complaint that the arrows are not available to nudge, it's probably set at 0. Okay? So to go ahead and get a line started here, we're going to do a simple one today. We're going to do an A+ heading, and the first thing that it's going to give me is my current implement setup. So one thing that we'll talk about with the C2100 is setting the header width. But if we want to set some overlap or something in there, it's very common to overlap maybe 12 inches with a header or something like that in wheat, and probably a smaller overlap in soybeans, maybe no overlap if we're using it for corn. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and accept the current implement setup that I've got with the green check mark, and now I can select my wayline type. I said before I want to do one simple, so it's an A+ heading. I pulled up here. I'm headed straight west. You can't really tell that right now, but I'm headed straight west right now. And it tells me what the heading actually was where I stopped. So I'm at 270 degrees even here. So I'm headed directly west. I want to go ahead and set my line to go directly west, so I'll just leave it on the 270. I could also go in, if I wanted to manipulate that number a little bit, simply press on the box, put in the degree of direction that I want, and go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and press the green check mark here. I'm headed in the direction that I want. And then to start, all I need to do is press A. Okay. Should notice right there, it does snap right onto the line, and now we're actually ready to drive the line. So as soon as we get the rest of the combine set up, we have our line and we're ready to go start harvesting. Okay. So that should complete our AG3000 setup. We're ready now to go ahead and move into our task controller. Okay. So I'm going to press on the folder button on the left-hand side, and version 2.02 has come out for Task Controller. So machines built since January of 2014 would have this from the factory. It's available to download through EDT, and it had a very simple goal. There were a couple of bugs that we wanted to fix with this. but more importantly probably is simplifying the setup, making it very easy to get started and get going. So if you notice what we see on the screen here, we have a task that's been selected before. So I was doing a little harvesting before with this machine, but notice on the top right hand side I've got a button that I can just press start. And what's nice about this is I can get going right away. I wouldn't even have to name anything if I didn't want to. I could press start and I could start recording data. And remember that a lot of the things, almost everything, you can actually, except for the data itself, almost everything you can go ahead and change in FarmWorks. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to go ahead and name a task. So let's see here. I'm going to name that by pressing the white page with the plus button there. On the very top line, I'm going to go ahead and name this, I'm going to hit clear, name it North 80. North space 80. Okay. Now we've got some other things that we could select. Select the customer, the farm, the field. I could create new ones for each of these. But if I'm doing a demonstration or I'm just getting started in the field and we just really need to start harvesting right away, I've got enough information in there right now that I could get going. Something really important to remember here, we want to train our customers on doing this. We won't do it for this example, but when we select the field, that's where we have the opportunity to add the commodity. This is really important when it comes to the FarmWorks side, to be able to see an accurate yield shown in our yield map. Okay, so remember that we want to add that information, especially the field and the commodity, for our customers. Really good stuff. We'll go through a little bit later on how to adjust this and change this in FarmWorks to make everything accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and press the green check mark here. I've got North 80 selected and I'm ready to press start. So now my task is running. We'll talk about a couple of the other things that we have related to the combine in our next section, but the task is running, so I'm ready to go start harvesting. I'll record all the data onto the console. When we get done, we're going to go ahead and export that data onto a jump drive, onto a USB stick, so that we can put that directly into the laptop. Okay? Alright, let's go ahead and take it to the next section here. We're actually going to talk about the combine on the C2100 a little bit here. We're going to start with the height. So on the left hand side of the screen, we can actually set or calibrate our height of the feed house. This way, in an axial combine, every time that we're below this point, we're counting data. We're counting acres, bushels, everything. In a Gleaner combine, as of today, we're currently counting all the information all the time. So it's something that we want to get changed and we want to get updated in the future, but it's just something to remember. Okay? So we've got our height there. On the machine, we can press on this button and then actually lower the head to the specific point where we think everything below that point is when we'll be harvesting, and everything above that point is maybe a headland turn. Okay? So I press the set button here and press OK, and we've got that calibrated. We should be good to go with that. The next part is our width. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to that point on the screen here where we have header size. I have a 30-foot head loaded in here, so we should be good to go with that, because that's what we've got installed on the machine and ready to harvest. Remember, we talked earlier about the task data needing some information from the combine. The header size is one of those critical points. We want to make sure that we set the header size, the header width in the C2100 here in our combine menu, and then our task controller will read that information and store it. Okay? Also works with the AG3000, so that we have a place to start for our width. Alright, so we've got the width set. We're going to go ahead and set the rest of the information on the screen on the Gleaner that we're already on. So we see a opportunity to set lead time, lag time, and yield delay. On the right hand side of the screen, it gives us some factory defaults, but with a Gleaner combine we know a few things about it. Instead of 21 seconds for lead time, 15 seconds is a little more accurate, makes our map a little bit better. Lag time, about 5 seconds is correct for that one, and the yield delay is about 12 seconds instead of the factory default of 16 seconds. It depends a little bit on crop and some things like that, so these may be adjustable, but the 15, 5, and 12 are probably the most accurate settings for us. Okay? We're going to go ahead and go to moisture next. We've got some things to talk about with moisture before we get to our yield setup. Moisture calibration, talk about that first real quick. The factory default is 0%. The way to calibrate this moisture is if we take a sample into the elevator and they tell us that it's 18% moisture, but on our screen it shows that we have 15%, then we simply press on the white box and put in the number 3, positive 3, hit the check mark, and now we have 3 as the current value. So that should really match us up very close. The more tests that we take, the more samples that we take to get that number, the better we're going to be. Okay? We have a dry yield reference there that is set per crop. For the crop we're in here, it's 12%. And then we have a moisture alarm setting. We have a factory setting of 18%, but perhaps I just don't want to, I don't have my moisture calibrated yet, or maybe I'm not concerned about the moisture, and in here I've already set the moisture alarm to 30%. One thing to remember on a Gleaner Combine with moisture is we've got to set it in the C2100 right here, but we've also got to adjust that moisture in our overhead display, in our EIP. So both the calibration and the alarm percentage we can set in our EIP. That way we have the alarm come on at the same time. It makes it a little easier for the customer. In the EIP, if you would rather, there's also a method to shut the moisture off, which a lot of people do, and then they just focus on the C2100 only. Okay? So we've got the moisture set, and now we're ready to talk about our yield setup here a little bit. In the Gleaner Combine, factory is 100 for a yield calibration factor. My personal experience and the kind of yield that I'm going to see here in this field, 115 is probably a really good place to start. A little more accurate than 100. So remember that whatever you harvest at that current reading, that's what it's going to show on our yield map. So we like to get as close as we can when we start. Test weight for the crop I'm in is going to be 60 pounds. And our next discussion is probably the automated yield calibration. So this might be one of the first things we do when we pull into the field with a customer. We've got everything else set up. We're going to do an automated yield calibration. I probably want to harvest at least 1 grain tank. Maybe half a grain tank is good enough. But we want to get some variability in the field so that we can get a good accurate calibration here with the automated yield calibration. Okay? So to do this, I'm going to simply press the start button. It resets the measured grain to 0. Now I'm going to harvest everything that I'm actually going to weigh before I press the stop button. So when we get to the end of a run, then we'll go ahead and press stop, and then you have the opportunity there whenever you have that grain weighed, press on the white box, enter then in the exact amount, exact pounds for that sample, and it's going to ask you if you want to accept the new calibration factor. Okay? Usually you're going to select yes, unless something is very wrong or something is wrong with the sensor. You're probably going to select yes there, that you want that little bit more accurate. So it's going to give you down to a decimal point. Maybe instead of 115, it's 117.2 or something like that. So it gets a little more accurate. There is another way, a rough way, an estimate to do the yield calibration factor. One way that I like to do in the field, if I don't have easy access to an elevator or grain cart with scales or something like that, is to harvest the bin completely full. So in a Gleaner Combine, 390 bushels is about full bin capacity. Remember, this is kind of a rough way to do this. So if I harvest it completely full, and I have a reading on the screen that says that I only have 350 bushel in there, but I know that I have 390, then I've got a simple math equation to make that work. I take the 390 bushels that I really have, I divide it by 350, and I take that exact number times whatever I already have for my yield calibration factor. So I get out my phone and get that to be as accurate as possible, put that number in, and I have a really good rough estimate to start with until I get to the point where I can do an automated yield calibration factor. Okay? The last item on the screen is a manual 0-point calibration. So in order to do this, I've got to rev up my engine all the way after I engage the thresher and the header. So I've got everything increased to full speed. Press the update button. It's going to count here for probably about 6 or 7 seconds. And then it's going to give me a 0-point number. That 0-point number and the counter number, as long as there's nothing in the grain bin in the elevator, those numbers should be exactly the same. Okay, and that's a hertz reading, a frequency that we get to see there. Okay. So now we've gone through our 0 point, our delays that we talked about earlier, the different numbers, our automatic calibration, manual calibration that we do some rough math with. Now I think we're ready to actually go for a drive in this thing. Remember, I've got my task running and I still have a line that I can acquire, and I should be ready to start harvesting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with everything engaged, and engage my steering so that I can follow my line that I made. Alright, as it steers me over here nicely, very aggressive on the line. Now that I'm harvesting, there's a few other things that I can take a look at. I can make sure that my task is running, so my green button here with my folder on the left side is a good indication. I've also got the green button for the steering, knowing that I'm on my line. To take a look at the task controller information here, notice that I can take a look at that task, and I can take a look at the summary. If I press on the summary, I can actually have a selection here for a coverage map. This is nice stuff. Okay, so you can be able to tell where you're at in the field, especially in the middle of the night. Okay, the last item that we want to do when we have completed some harvesting, we want to take that data, grab our USB drive, go into our task controller, hit our wrench icon over the folder, and then we're going to go ahead and actually plug this thing in. Okay. I've got data transfer selected, and I can see some information here. I'm ready to export to USB. Remember that we always want to export the harvest data to the USB. The only time that you would ever select import is before your harvest season starts. If you're putting in some jobs on your USB, on your laptop with FarmWorks, plug that in, then you can import that in. Remember, anytime you import anything, it's going to erase everything that's on that C2100. Okay, so let's go ahead and export. And it takes a few seconds, and now we're done. Data's on the card. Let's put it into FarmWorks and see what happens. Hope the information that we've gone through here today has helped you some. AG3000 with our calibrations and our setup and getting ready to go there, making our line. The task data, getting a job started quickly and efficiently so that we can get started harvesting right away. Very simple to start that job now with version 2.02 software. The C2100, remember we're setting our width and the cutoff height with that C2100, very important. And then we move into adjustments for the moisture, the yield, so on and so forth, to get as accurate a data as we possibly can. So again, thank you for paying attention. Hopefully there's some useful information in there for you. Okay, and then the last item that we want to go ahead and do now that we've completed a little bit of harvesting. Okay, the last item that we want to do when we have completed some harvesting, we want to take that data, grab our USB drive, go into our task controller, hit our wrench icon over the folder, and then we're going to go ahead and actually plug this thing in. Okay. I've got data transfer selected, and I can see some information here. I'm ready to export to USB. Remember that we always want to export the harvest data to the USB. The only time that you would ever select import is before your harvest season starts. If you're putting in some jobs on your USB, on your laptop with FarmWorks, plug that in, then you can import that in. Remember, anytime you import anything, it's going to erase everything that's on that C2100. Okay, so let's go ahead and export. And it takes a few seconds, and now we're done. Data's on the card. Let's put it into FarmWorks and see what happens.